Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment to imagine something powerful. Imagine you as your own parent, not your actual mother or father, but you taking the role of protector, provider, and teacher for yourself. Because real self-love, the kind that transforms lives, doesn't start with spa days or self-help books. It starts with parenting yourself. See, when we were kids, our parents were supposed to show us how to be safe, how to be strong, how to believe in ourselves. But what happens when that didn't come the way we needed? What happens when life threw more criticism than care, more pressure than praise? Self-love begins with self-responsibility. That truth might hit hard, especially in a world that constantly tells us love should come from others first. But real love, the kind that sustains you through storms, failures, and self-doubt, starts with you choosing to take full ownership of your life. You can't wait for someone to fix you, save you, or understand you before you begin to care for yourself. Responsibility isn't about blame. It's not about saying everything that's happened in your life is your fault. It's about understanding that healing, growth, and transformation become possible the moment you take control of your response to life. You might not control what happened to you, but you control what happens next. Taking responsibility for yourself means you stop outsourcing your value. You stop needing constant validation to feel worthy. It means you stop saying, I am the way I am because of them. Start saying, I choose to become who I was created to be. When you do that, you shift the power from the past to the present. You take the pen back into your hand and begin writing your own story with intention, not just reaction. Self-responsibility isn't always loud. Sometimes it's as quiet as waking up early to care for your mind. It's choosing to drink water instead of numbing out. It's sitting with your pain instead of distracting yourself. It's making the hard call, having the uncomfortable conversation, holding yourself to a higher standard because you know your life depends on it. It's saying no when you used to say yes, just to keep the peace. It's walking away from what doesn't serve you, even if it's all you've ever known. There's a moment in every person's life where they realize no one's coming to save them. No mentor, no lover, no friend can carry the weight of your healing. They can support, they can encourage, but the work is yours. That realization, that's freedom. That's the door to self-love opening. Because when you choose to be responsible for your life, you're declaring that you are worth the effort. You are worth the investment. You are worth showing up for even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Taking responsibility also means acknowledging your patterns. It means no more hiding behind excuses. No more blaming childhood forever. Yes, your past shaped you, but it doesn't define your future unless you let it. And once you understand that, you can stop repeating the cycles that hurt you. You can stop being your own enemy. You can start becoming your own advocate. Some people think responsibility sounds heavy, but in truth, it's what sets you free. Because as long as you think your life is controlled by things outside of you, you're stuck. But when you claim your power, when you say, I will take ownership of my growth, the game changes. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become the architect of your destiny. That's when love starts to feel different. Not a feeling, but a commitment, a standard, a structure you build inside yourself brick by brick, decision by decision. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to walk taller, think clearer, speak stronger. Why? Because you've chosen to take responsibility not just for your actions, but for your healing, your habits, your happiness. Self-love isn't soft, it's fierce. And responsibility is the root of that fierceness. It's the voice that says, no one owes me anything, but I owe myself everything. It's where discipline meets dignity, where effort meets purpose, where transformation begins. Parent yourself with both discipline and compassion. That's a balance most people never learn growing up. Often we're raised in homes that lean heavily to one side, either strict discipline with little affection or total leniency with no structure at all. But when you take on the role of becoming your own parent, you have the chance to break that cycle. You get to reteach yourself how to lead with love while still holding yourself to a higher standard. Real growth doesn't come from punishment or permissiveness. It comes from learning how to be both kind and firm with yourself at the same time. Discipline without compassion leads to burnout, shame, and fear. It becomes a voice in your head that's never satisfied, never enough, always pushing and criticizing. It's the version of you that wakes up and immediately lists everything you didn't do, everything you should be ashamed of, everything that's still not fixed. That voice may sound productive, but it's not powerful, it's punishing. And punishment never builds lasting change. It just reinforces the idea that you're only valuable when you perform. On the flip side, compassion without discipline becomes enabling. It turns into excuse making. It's the version of you that says, that's okay, even when you know deep down that you're avoiding the work. It's convincing yourself that skipping every goal, missing every deadline, and ignoring every difficult truth is just self-care. But real compassion doesn't let you stay small. It doesn't tell you to avoid the gym, the tough conversation. The early morning real compassion says, I know it's hard, but we're doing it anyway. Not because we have to, but because we deserve what's on the other side. Parenting yourself means you become that voice that knows when to push and when to rest. It means waking yourself up when you want to hit snooze because your future is calling. It also means knowing when to sit in silence and breathe because your soul is tired. It's checking your own behavior without shaming yourself. It's saying, hey, we need to do better, and also saying, hey, I see you trying, I'm proud. Think about how a great parent shows up. They don't scream every time you mess up, but they also don't let you run wild without guidance. They correct you, but they also hug you. They don't lower the bar just because you're struggling, they help you rise to it. That's what you need to give to yourself. You need to become the one who says, I expect more from you because I know you're capable of more. And at the same time, you become the one who says, even if you fall short today, your worth hasn't changed. Discipline teaches you structure, habits, commitment. It builds the routines that hold your future. But compassion reminds you why you're building it in the first place. It keeps your heart tender, your mind open, your spirit alive. Without discipline, dreams remain dreams. Without compassion, success feels hollow. But when you lead yourself with both, you begin to transform. This process of parenting yourself requires deep honesty. It asks you to look at your weaknesses without judgment and your strengths without arrogance. It asks you to create boundaries that protect your energy but also challenge your comfort zone. You have to become your own coach and your own comforter, your own motivator, your own safe space. You have to tell yourself the truth even when it stings, and then wrap yourself in grace so you can actually do something with that truth instead of hiding from it. That balance is where maturity is born. It's where inner peace is built. It's where self-respect grows, not because you never fall off, but because every time you do, you get back up without destroying yourself in the process. You become the one who knows how to course correct without crushing your spirit. The one who knows how to say, we didn't get it right today, but we will tomorrow, and I'm still with you. Speak to yourself the way a loving parent would. That simple shift in self-talk can change the entire trajectory of your life. Most people don't realize how much damage is done by the words they say to themselves daily. The tone you use, the labels you give yourself, the way you react when you make a mistake, those moments matter. They shape your identity. And when you've been conditioned to speak to yourself through the voice of criticism, sarcasm, or neglect, it's not easy to unlearn, but it's necessary. You wouldn't call a child stupid for making a mistake. You wouldn't mock a child for crying or for being scared. So why do we speak to ourselves with that same harshness? The truth is, somewhere along the way, we picked up those voices maybe from a parent, a teacher, a bully, or even society, and started repeating them to ourselves until like our own thoughts. They're not. You just never learn how to replace them with something healthier. But that can change. And it starts with becoming intentional about the way you speak to the person in the mirror. A loving parent doesn't sugarcoat everything, but they don't shame either. They correct in a way that builds, not breaks. They use their words to teach, not to tear down. That's what you've got to learn to do for yourself. You've got to become fluent in encouragement. You've got to speak words that reinforce your worth, not question it. When you fail, you don't say, I'm a failure. You say, I missed it that time, but I'll grow from this. When you feel insecure, you don't say, I'm not good enough. You say, I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm proud of how far I've come. Self-talk is not just about positive affirmations, it's about reparenting your inner world. It's about speaking to the scared, tired, or uncertain parts of you with kindness and clarity. It's telling yourself you're safe, you're loved, you're capable. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. That kind of language rewires your mind. It soothes your nervous system. It builds resilience because you're not constantly battling yourself just to make it through the day. Think about how powerful your voice becomes when it becomes your ally instead of your enemy. When you wake up and the first thought in your head isn't dread, but encouragement. When you look in the mirror and see potential instead of problems. When you make a mistake and respond with grace instead of guilt. That internal shift is the difference between surviving and thriving. This isn't about lying to yourself or pretending everything is okay when it's not. It's about telling the truth from a place of love. Instead of saying, you say you're tired and you need to reset, but you're not giving up. Instead of saying, you'll never figure this out, you say, this is new for you. And you're learning step by step. That kind of language creates space for growth. It doesn't shut you down. It lifts you up so you can move forward. Most people wait their whole lives for someone to say the words they've always needed to hear. But what if that someone is you? What if the most healing words you could ever hear are the ones you choose to say to yourself? What if the next breakthrough in your life isn't about working harder, but about speaking softer to your own heart? A loving parent's voice becomes the foundation of a child's self-worth. And when you become that parent to yourself, your self-worth no longer depends on anyone else's voice. You start to walk through life with confidence, not because everything is perfect, but because your inner world is finally on your side. Replace self-criticism with self-encouragement. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest shifts a person can make, especially when they've spent years or even decades believing that being hard on themselves is the only way to stay motivated. Many people confuse self-criticism with discipline. They think that if they're not constantly pointing out their flaws, they'll never improve. But the truth is, tearing yourself down never builds you up. It creates fear, shame, and paralysis. It keeps you stuck in cycles of guilt and perfectionism, never feeling like you've done enough or that you are enough. Encouragement, on the other hand, is not about being soft or letting yourself off the hook. It's about speaking life into your own journey. It's about becoming the voice that says, I believe in you, especially when you're at your lowest. Self-encouragement is a skill you build by choosing every day to support yourself, even when you fail, especially when you fail. It's reminding yourself that setbacks don't mean you're incapable, they mean you're human. They mean you're learning. They mean you're in the game, showing up. Most of us learn to internalize criticism early in life. We absorb the voices of authority figures who thought they were helping by pointing out what was wrong more often than what was right. That voice becomes the narrator in your mind, the one that's quick to jump in with, why did you do that? Or you're such a mess, or you'll never get it right, becomes automatic. But just because it's automatic doesn't mean it's accurate. And just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. Self-encouragement means choosing a different narrator, one who doesn't ignore your weaknesses, but who speaks to them with hope. One who says, this is hard, but you've done hard things before. One who says, you're not where you want to be yet, but look how far you've come. That voice creates the emotional safety necessary for growth, because no one thrives under constant attack, not even from themselves. But everyone grows when they feel supported, believed in, empowered. Encouragement fuels action. When you believe in yourself, you're more likely to take the next step. You're more likely to keep trying, keep learning, and keep rising. Criticism might get a short-term result, but encouragement builds long-term resilience. It keeps you grounded in your goals without drowning in your mistakes. It keeps you focused on progress, not perfection. There's a difference between accountability and self-judgment. Accountability says, that wasn't your best, let's figure out how to do better. Judgment says, that wasn't your best, so you must be a failure. Accountability moves you forward. Judgment holds you hostage. Replacing self-criticism with self-encouragement isn't about ignoring what needs to be worked on. It's about changing the energy you bring to the process. It's about shifting from blame to belief. Encouragement also allows you to be more honest with yourself. When you're not afraid of your own reaction, you stop hiding from your truth. You stop needing to pretend. You start facing your reality with open eyes and an open heart, because you know that your inner voice won't condemn you and walk with you. And that trust in yourself, that's what creates momentum. That's what sustains effort through every challenge, every delay, every doubt. You don't have to wait to feel confident before you encourage yourself. In fact, encouragement is what leads to confidence. It's the foundation of inner strength. Every time you choose to uplift instead of tear down, you're reinforcing a new pattern in your mind, a pattern that says you can fall without failing and that you can be a work in progress and still be proud. A pattern that gives you the courage to keep going, not because everything is going right, but because you've got your own back now. Be the source of the love and guidance you lacked. For many people, the deepest wounds don't come from what was done to them, but from what was missing. The love that was withheld, the words that were never spoken, the safety that was never provided, the guidance that should have been there but wasn't. These gaps create silent echoes that follow us into adulthood, shaping how we see ourselves, how we trust others, and how we handle life's challenges. And for a long time, people wait for someone to fill those gaps, a partner, a mentor, a friend. But healing begins when you stop waiting and start becoming what you never received. Becoming the source doesn't mean pretending nothing hurt you. It doesn't mean covering up your pain with toxic positivity or denying the truth of your past. It means acknowledging what you missed without letting it define what you're still missing. It's the moment you realize that while you didn't get what you needed back then, you have the power to give it to yourself now. That power is the essence of self-parenting and the beginning of true self-love. Start by identifying what you lacked. Maybe it was affirmation. Maybe it was structure. Maybe it was safety or someone who simply listens about judgment. Then step into the role of being that for yourself. It's a process, and it's not always easy. It requires patience. It requires choosing to show up for yourself consistently, even when you don't feel like it. Even when the old voices in your head tell you that you're not worth it or that it's too late. Being your own source means rewriting the narrative. If no one told you that you were lovable just as you are, you start telling yourself. If no one taught you how to handle stress or setbacks, you begin learning and leading yourself with grace. If no one protected you from chaos or pain, you start setting boundaries to create peace. You become your own foundation brick by brick, day by day. This isn't about doing life alone or rejecting support from others. It's about becoming so rooted in your own love and guidance that you no longer depend on others to complete you or fix you. It's knowing that you can receive love from others without needing it to survive. You create an inner environment where love isn't something you chase, it's something you embody. Guidance isn't something you wait for, it's something you practice. Every time you choose to speak kindly to yourself, every time you choose to make a better decision, even when no one's watching, every time you forgive yourself and keep going, you're filling in those missing pieces. You're becoming the adult you always needed. You're leading yourself out of the pain of the past and into the power of the present. That kind of transformation doesn't happen in one moment. It happens in the quiet, daily choices that build a new version of you. You learn how to love yourself, not just in the good moments, but especially in the hard ones. When you feel like you failed, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel unworthy, those are the moments where the old patterns want to pull you back. But instead of abandoning yourself like others may have done, you show up. You say, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And as you keep showing up for yourself, something incredible starts to happen. Your relationship with yourself begins to heal. You begin to feel safer in your own presence. You begin to trust your own voice. You stop searching for someone to rescue you, and instead you rise as your own rescuer, your own guide, your own steady source of love.